Let's talk about one of the biggest consumer traps of the modern kitchen. Meal kit subscriptions. And I know you've seen the ad, the influencer unboxing dinner in perfect lighting, the promise of saving time, eating healthy, and feeling organized again. But here's the truth that you don't hear. Most customers cancel before their third box even ships. And that would sound devastating, except for the fact that these companies aren't even built for loyalty. They are, in fact, built for turnover. They rely on you clicking subscribe during a busy week, staying long enough to use that 65% off coupon, and then forgetting to cancel before the next charge hits. So this isn't even about food. This is about psychology. These companies are parodying the feeling of control, but not the skill of self-sufficiency. And that's why I want to talk about it, because if you've ever thought, I just don't have time to cook, you're not lazy and you're not failing, but you have been marketed into believing that feeding yourself is hard to do. But what if I told you that there is a way to have the ease that you're craving without the markup, the waste, or the illusion of convenience? That's what we're breaking down today. Now, here's the thing. Meal companies did not invent the busy weeknight, but they certainly have capitalized on it. They took one of our most universal pain points, decision fatigue, and turned it into a billion-dollar business model. And look, their pitch actually sounds compassionate. We'll take the stress out of dinner. But if you look closely, what they are really selling is relief from uncertainty, not nourishment. So here's the thing. The average HelloFresh meal costs around $12 per serving after fees and shipping. But that same meal, made from seasonal groceries, averages about $4. Now, if you multiply that over a year, you're paying nearly $2,000 extra for the illusion of simplicity. Now, 2 generations ago, food literacy was taught the same way that we teach math or reading. By the early 2000s, most home ec programs disappeared, so while we entered adulthood fluent in spreadsheets, we were illiterate in dinner. So this is where cooking stopped being seen as a life skill and started being sold back to us as a service. First it was through fast food, and then after that, frozen food, and now algorithms that match you to a particular food kit that's delivered right to your door. And because the marketing is wrapped in, wellness, organic, curated, we just believe that it is the smarter choice. But that belief is not accidental, it's manufactured. But the wild thing is we actually love watching people cook. Cooking shows have had record viewership. Cookbooks keep topping bestseller lists, but our actual cooking rates keep falling. And, when you are watching someone else cook, your brain releases the same dopamine hit as if you would have accomplished the task yourself. It tricks you into feeling productive, but without the mess. So meal kit marketing rides that same neural shortcut. Beautiful boxes, quick wins, instant gratification. It's designed to make you feel like you're making progress, even if you're just standing still. So here's another truth buried under that convenience. The packaging and shipping cost account for nearly 40% of the price. And so what that means is that you're likely paying extra to move ingredients you likely already own the skills to combine. And most of those boxes, they are filled with single-use plastics and ice packs that cannot be recycled. Meanwhile, the average household throws away $1,800 worth of groceries every year because we never learned to sequence our meals. The meal kit didn't fix that. It just hid it for a week. Now, let me be clear. This is not about villainizing anyone who has tried a meal kit. It's about recognizing how we even got here. You were never the problem, the system is. You don't need to outsource dinner. You need a framework that makes dinner flow. And that's what I'm about to show you, how I use seasonal shopping, fridge bin systems, and meal sequences to create real convenience that lasts. Okay, so let's actually look at what you're getting when you subscribe to one of these meal kit boxes. So a typical plan for 2 people, 3 dinners per week runs about $79 after taxes and shipping. So that's roughly $13 a serving. For a family of 4, that climbs past $150. And inside of this box, you're going to find a handful of pre-measured ingredients, a few ounces of produce, single-use packs of sauce or oil, and a printed recipe card. Now, here's the thing. You still have to chop, saute, boil, bake, everything except the grocery shopping. So when people say it saves me time, the truth is it saves you one errand, right? Not an hour. The work of cooking does not disappear. You just pay someone else to portion it out. Now, when you add it up, nearly half of what you're paying isn't even food. It's packaging, portioning, and marketing. And that's not convenience. That's curation with a markup. Look, I get the appeal. Someone else, did the thinking. You open the box and feel like one step ahead. But come on now, that feeling has got to fade fast because you can't stack or stretch those meals. Once you eat them, you're back to square one next week. So here's the truth. What they're selling you is a glorified grocery list in a box. And once you realize that, once you learn how to build your own system, you don't need to rent that feeling anymore. I'm just going to say the quiet part out loud because I have questions. So what happens when an extra friend or relative shows up for dinner? Do you stretch a 2-person meal into 3 plates? Or do you order out again? Can you double a recipe for guests, or are you locked into pre-measured portions that don't scale? Or what about this? When your schedule shifts and you skip a night of cooking, what happens to that $13 portion waiting in the fridge? And I can't even imagine if you went to go open up a meal kit and realize that the produce wilted before you even had time to cook it. And then I'm also wondering if you have dietary changes midweek, say you're craving lighter meals or you need leftovers for lunch. Does the kit flex with you, or does it force you into its plan? And when the box arrives, are you actually excited or more so anxious about another ticking clock dinner that you have to make before it spoils? And do you actually feel less stressed after cooking it, or just momentarily relieved that someone else decided what's for dinner? And then I'm also wondering, how often perhaps do you find yourself supplementing with extra ingredients from your fridge, right? Say that you in fact need a little bit more oil or more seasoning for a particular side dish, but that wasn't included in what you paid for. And then come on now, if the coupon code disappeared tomorrow, would you still subscribe at full price? And there's also this, how does it feel to still be chopping, sauteing, and cleaning after paying someone else to plan your meal? Are your cooking skills improving with each box, or are you just following directions until the next one arrives? Can you reuse any of these recipes confidently without the box? Or instead, do you feel dependent on the subscription to eat well? And then what happens if the shipment is delayed? Is dinner suddenly impossible? So meal kits promise flexibility, but they really box you in. And then the moment that life shifts, a guest, a craving, a busy night, the whole system just cracks. And that's because real kitchen freedom isn't pre-measured, it's prepared. So here's what I'm thinking that meal kits really sell. They sell confidence, but it's borrowed, right? They're gonna hand you a recipe card with a photo so polished that you could actually frame it. And then for 30 minutes, you feel like the star of your own cooking show. You chop, you stir, you plate, and you think, I'm doing it. I'm really cooking. But here's the catch. It's confidence on loan, because the moment that those boxes stop coming, most people realize that they never actually learned to cook. They learned to follow directions. We often confuse repetition with understanding, and we confuse precision with intuition. And that's dangerous, because cooking, real cooking, is not about memorizing steps. It's about feeling them. It's knowing how a pan should sound, how an onion should smell when it's ready. Meal kits flatten that whole sensory experience into a checklist. So truly, you're not mastering a skill, you're completing a task. And that's because cooking isn't just a means to an end, it is an act of awareness. And the more that we let someone else choreograph that experience for us, the further we drift from what actually makes food human. So yeah, they say that meal kits save you time, but time from what exactly? Right? Because you still have to unpack and chop and saute and bake and wash dishes. The only thing that they've saved you time from is deciding. And somehow that is what we are most exhausted by. It is the decision making. We've been sold this lie that cooking is what drains us, when it's really the starting from scratch every night that does it. The real time saver isn't in outsourcing dinner. It's in building rhythm. Batching, sequencing, flowing from one night to the next. A meal kit can't do that. It's a one and done dinner. It doesn't teach you the patterns that make cooking sustainable. So when people tell me that they don't have time to cook, I get it, but then I also translate that into my mind of them saying that you don't have time to restart from scratch every day, right? Like that is the exhaustion talking, not the actual cooking. Okay, so here's another myth that people rarely talk about, and it's the quiet inflation that is baked into convenience. So when you start believing that a $13 home cooked meal is normal, that number doesn't stay with the subscription. It starts to feel reasonable everywhere. So then, like the next time that you're at the grocery store, $8 for a pack of chicken doesn't sound outrageous. It becomes the baseline. And this is how marketing conditioning works. Meal kits don't change how we eat. They change what we actually accept. They shift our internal sense of what dinner should cost. And because they sell premium ingredients wrapped in convenience, they rebrand necessity as a luxury product. You know, it's subtle, but it's really powerful because once you start to normalize overpaying for food, you stop asking the hard questions. Why has something so basic, become so expensive? Cooking at home used to be the antidote to inflation, and now we've let convenience rewrite the math. And another thing is that meal kits actually look flexible on the surface, right? Like when you watch them, it's like, oh, you can pick your own meals, you can swap your sides, but it's like the illusion of choice because every ingredient that you're going to get is already pre-measured. You can't riff, right? You can't substitute, you can't adapt. And that's important because cooking used to be adaptive. Our grandparents didn't Google a recipe when they ran out of something. They just improvised. They swapped and they stretched and they made do. And that is the heartbeat of a resilient kitchen. But meal kits quietly erode that. Instead, they teach us to stay and color inside the lines, to measure instead of imagine. And over time, that flexibility muscle starts to atrophy. Because here's the thing, when your pantry is already full of ingredients, you are giving yourself unlimited options. But when your dinner depends on a delivery, you have real limits. The irony is that the more we're trying to outsource food, the less self-sufficient we actually become. We lose that creative instinct that once made cooking feel very free. And I think that actually is the quiet tragedy of convenience. It doesn't just make us, dependent on those companies. It makes us strangers in our own kitchens. Okay, so before I go any further, I just want to pause for a second because if you're new here, you might be thinking, who is this woman coming after meal kits? So let me go ahead and tell you who I am. I am not an influencer. I don't have a film crew. I don't obviously have a production kitchen, and I'm definitely not getting paid to tell you what to buy. I am someone who works full time. I work in education. I love my job. And when I come home, I still have to figure out dinner just like you do. So when I started sharing my kitchen online, I was not trying to go viral. I just wanted to see people in a real kitchen, like a working kitchen. And I have nothing against a beautiful kitchen, but I didn't want an overly curated one. And when you're watching one like that is, right? Like one that is not optimized for an algorithm, but one that actually feeds a family. And night after night on real time and a real budget. Because here's the thing, I do not have unlimited time and I don't have a chef's degree, but I do believe that feeding ourselves shouldn't have to be this hard or this expensive. And I've learned that you can cook beautiful, nutrient-dense meals without losing your evenings if you just have a system. You can make your own shelf-stable ingredients with things like canning, dehydrating, and freezing, and build your own ready-to-go pantry. And yeah, I know that doesn't sound trendy or marketable, because no one is going to sell you a box that says, learn to can your own beans. But that's exactly why I share this, because those skills matter now more than ever. Canning, dehydrating, fermenting, meal sequencing is not glamorous. It's not brand sponsored. It's just sustainable. But it is the kind of kitchen that's going to keep you fed during busy weeks, through rising grocery prices, through seasons of life that change fast. And, that's what I've built. Not a show. A system, a way to bring back the rhythm of cooking so that you can actually live in your kitchen again. And so if you've ever looked around and thought, I cannot keep doing this, ordering out, wasting food, starting from scratch every night, stay with me, because I promise that there is a better way. And it's a lot simpler than you think. So again, I want to be honest here. I absolutely get the initial appeal of meal kits, right? There were seasons of my life where dinner was just one more decision and I did not have the energy to make it. Like there have been seasons of my life where I am working full time and then I am also in school and, coming home to a list of like real life, laundry, personal emails, bills, just like adulting. And by 6 p.m., cooking can feel like a whole nother full-time job. So yes, I understand why feeding yourself starts to feel, I guess the word is negotiable. It's because it feels like it's the easiest thing to just outsource. But when you actually sit down and you look at the math, it's a shock to the budget. So my family has what I would call a normal middle class income, and still those convenience costs stack up so fast. Like even just after like having a busy week and you're eating out 2 or 3 times, like it is not sustainable. And so I had to find a way to make real food work for a real schedule. So here's the thing. I grew up around my grandmother's kitchens and both of them were working kitchens. So I at least had some of the basics. But even with that, somewhere along the way between work and grad school, I realized that I had stopped cooking like them. I was buying food, but not ingredients. I had a pantry full of boxes and brands, but not much I could actually turn into dinner. And so it was around this time that I started what I will call my from scratch recovery. I started to get curious about what food looked like before all this convenience culture. And I started reading early American cookbooks, the kind that assume that you've already made something yesterday and that you're going to use the leftovers for tonight's meal. And that combination was the spark for everything that I share here. So here's the thing, because those old recipes were built on flow, not on start and stop cooking. So you would roast a chicken one night, and then the next night it would become soup, and then the night after that, maybe a pot pie. You weren't starting from zero every night. Instead, you were building. So I started doing that again. One base recipe that I would stretch and remix or fold into the next. And then I realized that I could, in fact, cook like my grandmother, but with modern systems. And that's a little bit where my fridge bin method started to come in. So each bin is like my own mini meal kit. All of the ingredients are grouped together for one dinner sequence. Except instead of paying someone else to portion them out for me, I just group them myself after grocery shopping. I do not need a box showing up at my door. My grocery bags are the boxes. Each bag goes right into the fridge, already organized, already planned. It takes minutes, not hours, and I'm using the same simple real food that's on sale and in season. Not dozens of acrylic containers, no food spoilage from over-organizing. Instead, it's just a simple lived-in system that keeps real food front and center. Okay, so here's where it really clicked, because during COVID, when store shelves were empty of canned goods, the fresh produce section was virtually untouched, and that was my light bulb moment. So while people were panicking and buying cans, I was turning fresh food into my own shelf-stable pantry. I was canning green beans, dehydrating fruit, freezing bone broth. I had food security not because I stocked up, but because I had learned to preserve. So when I talk about meal sequencing, it's not just about what's for dinner tonight. It's about what you can pull from your pantry or, the freezer or your fridge tomorrow. It's about building a backup plan. And so when people ask what my channel is really about, it's this. I teach people how to make their own meal kits from food they already buy. I mean, I haven't said it like that before, but that is what it is. And actually, that's where the Dinner's Done Dispatch was born. The idea that you can learn to cook from one base and then build forward, and you never have to start from scratch again. And here's the thing. I share the exact meal sequences that I use every week. How one pot of soup turns into enchiladas, or a sheet pan of vegetables becomes breakfast the next day. And here is the best part. The comments are full of people saying, I tried this and it actually worked. And you end up with half the waste or none, half the stress, and double the flavor. So yeah, I guess you could say that I built my own HelloFresh, but mine just doesn't show up in a box. It shows up in a rhythm, and one that actually works in real life. Okay, so here's what this would actually look like in real life, and it isn't staged. This is literally a fridge on a Tuesday night. Now, when I get back from the store, I unpack everything into 3 bins. Each grocery bag already matches a meal sequence, essentially, and so the organization happens once, right? Not every night. And that is a time saver because, as I like to say, when I get home from work, there are days where I've already been all I could be. And if I then felt like I had to make even decisions in my own kitchen of like pulling everything together, that would be enough to just, honey, like I said, I get it. But if all I have to do is just put on my apron, grab the bin, and then I'm turning on the burner because all of my ingredients are right there, like I can always do that. So essentially what I make for myself is my version of a meal kit, except there's no cardboard, there's no plastic packets. It's just food that is ready to cook. It takes 5 minutes and then dinner is basically on autopilot. And here is the thing that is wild. This simple structure cut my cooking time in half and my food waste went to almost zero. Because once I have a plan, I actually use what I buy, right? There's no mystery produce, there's no forgotten meat that's shoved into the freezer. It's the small but not so small win that I need because like this now means that I can work all day. I can also in the evenings have time to film. I can answer emails. I can help my family. And then I can still feed my family a nutrient-dense meal at home. And with this system, not once have I thought, oh man, like I want to order out because dinner's too much work. That's why I created the Dinner's Done dispatch. It's the same rhythm that I live by. One base, many meals mapped out for you every month. Each dispatch gives you the grocery list, the prep flow, and the family spin-offs so that you can cook smarter, not longer. You still shop once a week, but instead of starting from scratch each night, you'll be remixing what you already have. These dispatches are your personal meal kit, minus the markup, and with the freedom to actually learn your own kitchen again. So if you've ever wanted the ease of a meal kit, but the satisfaction of a home-cooked dinner, that's what the Dinner Dispatch is. It's how I cook, and it's a collective dinner table for those of us that are looking for real solutions. Because you and I both know that you don't need another subscription box. You just need a system that works with real life. And that's exactly what I help you to do. If you want to start, the links below, try 1 week and see how much lighter dinner feels when the work actually makes sense. So here's the takeaway that I want you to walk away with. You don't need to rent dinner. You don't need to buy another box promising to save you time. You just need a rhythm, one that fits your real life, your real budget, and your real energy. And that's what this channel is about. And every single video I make shows how I take that same idea, one base recipe stretched and remixed, and then use it to keep good food on the table all week long. Okay, so if you actually want to see how this works, you can do one of two things. You can go explore my video library right up here on YouTube. There are tons of free meal sequences waiting for you, or you can grab my free grocery guide below. And then when you click to get that, I'm going to send you the same system that I use to plan and shop each week. It is a simple framework that helps you to build your own meal kits without the markup or the waste. Don't overthink it here because it is a small step, but it is one that changes everything. Because once you have that plan, the thinking part is done for you. And here's the thing, you're gonna have meal sequences that you can adapt for any season, any diet, any budget, and you'll have them for life. And that's the difference between meal kit subscriptions and this community. Meal kits end when the box runs out, but the skills that you learn with meal sequencing, they grow with you. And honestly, like that is the best part. It's watching what people do with it, the comments, the photos, the little wins that people share. It is proof that everyday people are reclaiming their kitchens, one small system at a time. So if you're ready to start, click the QR code on your screen or in the description box below. I'll see you in my kitchen or garden soon. Take care, friends.